thank you again for being here. Usually I don't juggle two things at once. I'm a big gesticulator, so I'm going to do my best. As Nicholas said, I work at Stanford Graduate School of Business. I'm a native New Yorker. I'm a very fast talker, but I'm going to try to slow it down a little bit. And I teach 4 courses there. I teach strategic communication, reputation management, personal branding, and executive presence. The question that I get more often than any is, how do you present yourself to the world? And it's a great question. And I always say, well, I can tell you what not to do. The answer is, do not present yourself in just one way. Because we are not just one thing. We're not just a title. We're not just the job that we do. We're not the place that we live in, right? We are an amalgam of all the different things that have brought us to the position we're in right now. But we tend to pigeonhole ourselves. So if we're in this job right now, we think this is what we do. This is how people recognize me. This is how people identify myself. And we are loath sometimes to take a risk. So I'm going to have a little question now for all of you, okay? This is from an article called The Confidence Game. On a scale of 1 to 100%, if you're a man, how likely are you to take a risk to try something new? 30%, 60%, 80%, 100%. I'm going to ask Rich. Rich, how much percent certain do you need to be to want to try something new? From 1 to 100%.
I don't need to be very certain. I take risks all the time.
Okay, can you give me a percentage?
96.
That's very certain.
Well, you asked.
Okay, 96%. Any other thoughts?
70.
70%, that's a good guess. Okay, so the answer is 60%. Men tend to need to just be 60% certain, and they'll try something. Okay, Angela, where are you?
Right here.
Angela, for women, from 1 to 100%, how certain does a woman have to feel to want to try to make a change?
Like 127%. 99.9.
I misunderstood the question.
It's okay, Rich. I know you did, and that's okay. No judgment here, guys. There's no judgment. 100%. So there's a biological reason for this. Women have more estrogen. Men have more testosterone. We all learned this in Biology 101. But women actually have a worrywart section in their head. So what happens is women, they're better at connecting, right? They're better at bonding, which is great for us. But they like to know the landscape. They like to have the answers beforehand. So they really don't like to opt in. Men have more testosterone. They're more comfortable with risk. They don't have to think it out so much. They're not always as emotionally aware of things as women are. So we all have our strengths, but for women, they will look through a checklist and they'll go, I can do that, I can do that, can't do that, I can do that, can't do that, not going to do it. Men will look at the same list, I can do that, can't do that, can't do that, I can do that, can't do that, I can do that. Sound familiar? So the problem is, how do we start doing things if we don't want to even opt in? My mantra in life is, it's not what happens, it's how you deal with it. It's really the crux of every reputational issue out there. I advise people when I coach them, don't let your knee-jerk reaction to say, that's not me, that's not how I'm seen, I'm not ready for that. I say do it, and then panic, and then figure it out. And in the same article, The Confidence Game, if a woman is not given the choice and she's made to take an exam that the man is made to take, she will do exactly the same or better if she's not given the same choice. So I want you to close your eyes for a second, and I want you to think, when was there a time when you really, really, really wanted to do something, and you wanted something badly, and you had to work really hard for it? And you pulled all your resources together, and you researched it, and you asked for help, and you looked online, and you just did everything you needed to get it. Did you fail? And I bet the answer is no. Because we're all really smart and we're all really capable. And when something is that high stakes and you want something, you don't allow yourself to fail. So when the option is put, hey, do you want to try this? Or there's something available for you to maybe put yourself out and volunteer for. Don't say, I don't think I can do it. I'm not ready for that. Say, okay. And then go in the corner, freak out, and then start getting your resources together. Don't underestimate yourself, because you can stay and be complacent and nothing happens. Or you can take the risk and all this opportunity is there. So I'm going to be really transparent. I know I'd shared this with a couple of people. I am really not good with numbers. That's not my superpower. I'm really creative, I'm artistic, I'm a writer, I was in television, but I've always been a math-phobic person. And in one of my jobs, I was brought in to do interactive television applications, and they brought me in and I had my big meeting and we're like, you're gonna manage this team and that team and you're gonna create all these wonderful applications for television. And I was so excited, and you're gonna manage 70 people and blah, blah, blah. And the last thing they said is, and you're gonna balance the budget for the department. And I was like, great, no problem. And I left the meeting and I went into the stairwell and I started hyperventilating, and then I started crying because my body had a physical reaction to the fact that I'd have to balance a budget, which I'd never had to do at ABC. That wasn't my job. And I had to literally calm myself down and then find a different floor, go to the bathroom, spray cold water over my face because it was like beet red like a tomato because I'm an ugly crier. And then when I was calm, I went back down to the new floor. And all along I'm saying, first day is my last day, first day is my last day. They found me out, I'm an imposter, this is it. And I didn't think about the 99% of the job that I was gonna kick ass, right? I thought about the 1% that felt uncomfortable to me. Then I came back downstairs and I said, excuse me, who's the person who does expense reports for the department? And they said, oh, Sarah over there. So I went over to Sarah and I said, hey, Sarah. I said, have you ever done a budget? And she said, sure. And I said, okay, tomorrow I want you to put aside 3 hours and you and I are going to do the budget for the department. And she goes, no problem. I did the budget with Sarah. She had no idea that I was freaking out in the stairwell, right? So not everybody has superpowers in every department, right? You just have to not show people you don't have all the superpowers. You also have to know yourself well enough to know, what can I do and what can I do and what am I not great at? I'm going to go get the resources and support that I need. Why don't we try new things? I'm putting the first one up, afraid of failure. Does anyone else want to call out any? Why don't we try new things?
Outside our comfort zone.
Yes. Let's see, was that it? Oh my God, I wish I had some chocolate for you. That was awesome. All right, people don't see me that way. Does anyone else want to try? Afraid of failure, that was the first one.
It works.
Let's see what else. I've never had that title before. I'm not ready. Any more that I didn't think of? People will be jealous or not like me. That's a very female-oriented one. We don't want people not to like us because we're succeeding, right? Or our friends aren't going to go grab a beer with us because now I'm their boss, or now I'm doing better. These are all reasons why we don't want to try new things. But they're not good enough reasons. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my history, because I've had a really weird timeline of how I've done things. And there have been many times in my life that I have been that round peg in a square hole. And I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and imposter syndrome was going boop, 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 and just beeping in my face. And I had to fake it till I made it. So I started off, I went to University of Pennsylvania, and I was an English communications major because I thought I was going to go to Wharton, and then I barely got through Econ 1A. And I realized, that's, again, not my superpower. And I had my own show called 10 p.m., and I worked at KYW News. Right out of school, 3 days later, I started working at Good Morning America. And I produced all different kinds of segments. I did in-studio and remotes, and did the bus tours across America and all the theme weeks. And I stayed there for 7 years, and I loved this show. It was the #1 show, and I got Emmy nominated. And after 7 years, I hit that proverbial ceiling where I wasn't seeing any upward mobility. And I got offered a job in the shopping network area. Barry Diller and Diane von Furstenberg were starting a new shopping network called Q2, which was kind of like QVC, but better products that yuppies use. And it was in Silvercup Studios in Long Island City. And they offered me double my salary. And I went over to produce the home department because I had produced all these theme weeks. And my host quit because she was so terrified of going on air. And they said, you do it. So the first thing is like, you don't do that, Allison. You've never been on air. I can't do that, right? That voice in your head. But they made me audition, and I sold the hell out of a portable chair. I'm not kidding. It was called the How to Seat. And I was like, I sold 100 fake chairs to people. And they said, okay, you go and do it. So for 5 months I was on air. And I don't know if any of you know who Clinton Kelly is from What Not to Wear in the Chew. That's Clinton right there. And he and I were the first hosts on Q2. And he's got a big career, much bigger than mine. So I used to sell all these home products. You'd think the Weber Grill and I were BFFs. I still, to this day, have never grilled in my entire life. I lied my way through this career. And you would think that I was Miss Gardening, Miss Cook, Miss whatever, but I'm a great researcher. And what's so interesting about this job is it taught me all these communication skills, how to be persuasive, how to figure out what people might want to buy, how to tell stories, how to demonstrate, how to talk about features and benefits. So I learned a lot, and I got over my fear of being on air. And then I went into the control room, and I produced all these shows, and all the hosts wanted to work with me because I had been a host, and I knew how to be a really great producer in their ear. And then The View came calling. Because I had left ABC, I got to come back in a more powerful position. And they paid me much more. And I was in the ear now of 5 hosts at one time, including Barbara Walters and all the ladies. And this is just a really funny story. When I went for the interview, they said, we're going to pay you this much a week. And because I'm really terrible at math, this is what I look like when they said that. And they thought I was dissatisfied, so they gave me a raise. They said, okay, we'll pay you this much. So sometimes it's really good not to know math because I just looked like I was negotiating. Anyway, so I got an instant raise. So I then started at The View, and this was an awesome job. And then my bastard of a husband said, I want to move to California to go to Stanford Business School. Yeah. So I started up at .com during the .com phase. Talk about imposter syndrome. I really didn't know anything about the digital world. I became a co-founder, which I didn't know what that meant, and the VP of content, which meant I had to create content for a website. I called all my friends in New York and said, I need you to write for this website. And they're like, what's a website? I said, I don't really know, but just can you create content for me? And then a year later, we were a .com disaster along with 300 other sites. And I sold my content to women.com, so we got paid for a little bit. And then I was snapped up by OpenTV because for some reason the fact that I did a .com made me credible. These people heard I was a TV producer, and they needed me to help create interactive applications. So the fact that I was a TV producer made me very credible. The fact that I was in digital made me credible. So even though I felt like an imposter, I seemed to be a hot commodity. And they snapped me up, and I worked there for 3 years as a top paid executive. And then my husband's professor started up Current TV with Al Gore, heard that I was a TV producer, who knew, again, very in demand, and they needed someone to help start this up. So I worked with Al for a year, and Current TV was kind of the predecessor of YouTube, and it was civilian core generated footage. And I got to work with him, and it was awesome. On my last day of consulting, I found out I was pregnant after 9 in vitros, and I decided to raise trouble and more trouble. There they are. And I took 7 years to raise my boys, and I did a little media consulting on the side. But I have to say that it was the hardest job for me, having worked since I was 16. I was very afraid of motherhood, and I always thought I'd be a working mom, but with no family out in California, there was really no one else to take care of the kids. My husband was an entrepreneur, and he worked crazy hours. So that slide, of course, is the cliched crossroads slide, and I was at a crossroads. They were both in school. I had waited for them to both be in school full time, and I said to myself, what am I going to do? I'm older. I haven't really done anything. And Good Morning America and The View had become my fish story. Do you know when someone says, I went fishing and I caught a fish this big? Right? And my husband used to joke, and he's like, you gotta stop telling people you work for Good Morning America and The View. It's like, that's been a long time ago. And I'm like, I know, but it really makes me seem important. And he's like, you gotta stop saying that. And I'm like, I know, but I don't know who I am anymore. And so I really thought, like, what do I wanna do? I don't wanna go back and do the same thing. What am I good at? Right? I think a lot of us at certain points in our life, like, who am I? What am I good at? And I thought, what am I good at? I'm good at creating content. I'm good at messaging. I'm good at teaching. And I'm creative, and I'm good at deadlines. And then I said, I want to teach. And I know all these famous people that I worked with. And I said, what if I create a course at Stanford? And I bring in all these famous people that I worked with. And I talk about reputation in business. And I came up with this great idea, and I got really excited. And I called up all these people I worked with, like Joan London, who used to host Good Morning America, and people from Nightline and ABC and global leaders who I'd worked with. And I called up about 18 people who had name recognition and all had stories, reputational issues. And I said, if I create a course at Stanford University, will you come in and speak? And Joan London's like, yeah, I'll waive my fee, which is like $20,000. And all these people said yes. So once they all said yes and they were booked, I said, damn, I better create a course. And so I sat down and I wrote this proposal of what I would do if I had a course. And then I started shopping it around. And I tried 2 different venues. One was the communications school at Stanford, and the dean said yes, but then she got fired, detour. And then I went to continuing studies at Stanford, and they loved the idea, but they said too many bells and whistles, we'll take 1 guest. I said, that's not my vision. And then I asked my husband, I said, do you know who I should send this to? I don't know why I didn't go to my husband first, but I guess I wanted to do this alone. And he sent it to one of his professors, and the professor said, Allison should meet this professor. And I met J.D. Schramm, and he loved my course, and he said, you know what, I'll teach this with you. And so that August, I met him, and then the next spring, Reputation Management Strategies for Successful Communicators was born. About 80% of my guests came and spoke, and now I've taught it for 4 years. From that course, he invited me to teach strategic communications, and then I developed media training there, executive presence, and then Joan was my first guest. I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. I'll tell you the next thing. So wait, let me go back, I'm sorry. So I taught that, and then all these other courses came from it. So I want to ask you, to what do people, and often women, attribute their success?
Other people.
Other people's a great answer. Any other?
Spouses.
Spouses, because I kind of just did that. Anything else? I'm looking for a specific answer, but those are all right.
Mentors.
Mentors, yes. Confidence.
Luck. Other women.
Spouses.
Luck.
Luck.
The woman behind the man.
The woman behind the man or the man behind the woman?
Right.
Coaches. But I was looking for what Paul said, which is luck. Do people agree with that a lot of people said I was lucky? Yeah. So a lot of people say luck. And you know, to me, really, luck is when you go to Vegas and you play the roulette wheel and that ball actually lands on your number. That to me is luck. I really don't believe in careers when you're successful it has to do with luck. I think it has to do with hard work. I truly do. I don't believe luck has to do with it. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, says, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And Joan said this in my class when she was a guest. And I kind of like this because it makes a little more sense than just random luck. But I also added something to this because I don't really believe this either. Because, okay, preparation meets opportunity. Then what, right? So I added this. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity meets initiative. You have to do something. You have to have a vision or an idea or the chutzpah or the moxie to say, okay, I'm in a good situation, or I recognize something, or I'm just going to do it, or nothing's going to happen. You make your luck. So this is my secret weapon. You have to present the solution, not the suggestion. How many of you have been in meetings where someone's like, hey, there's something wrong with this. You know, this is not working. And there's a problem identifier, right? There's always someone very happy to tell what's going wrong. But it's very frustrating, right? Because no one really wants to hear what the problems are. It doesn't move anything forward. And then there's always someone who comes up and goes, you know what? I got it taken care of. This is how I'll solve it. And that person's the hero. A problem identifier is just a noisemaker. And yes, you're going to get your voice heard, but it's not your voice heard in a positive way. You should be the problem solver. And I truly, truly believe that if you're the person who not only comes up with the solution, but hands it to somebody kind of taken care of, you will create your destiny and get exactly what you want. So I'm going to give you another example. So Tyra Banks came to Stanford a little over a year ago, and I was invited to be in the front row, and I'm a big fan of hers. I've watched her show. I don't know if you've heard of America's Next Top Model, but she was there, and I'm watching her, and she's talking about starting off as a supermodel, and then she became curvy, and her mom encouraged her to go to Sports Illustrated, and she became the first African-American model on Sports Illustrated, and then she kept getting curvier, and she decided to be the Victoria's Secret model. And she cornered the market there, and she became an angel, Victoria's Secret angel. She did acting, she wrote a book, she did a movie, and then she became Oprah's kind of roving reporter, and then she started her own talk show, The Tyra Show, and then she created her own reality show, which was America's Next Top Model. She went to Harvard and got an OPM degree, which is a smaller business degree, for 9 weeks, and then she created her own beauty company called Tyra Beauty, which is not just smacking her name on an existing beauty company, she actually develops her own products. So as I'm listening to her talk, she's talking about knowing when to pivot, knowing when to leave the party before it's over, and being underestimated time and time again. And my head is working, and I'm thinking, my God, she knows so much about personal branding. She talks about cold calling people and, knowing how to not give in to the stereotypes, and that she decided, I'm not going to lose all this weight to be a model if that's not what I'm meant to be. I'm going to be a different kind of model. I'm going to be a curvy model. And I'm like, she knows so much, and she's charismatic, and she's teaching me. And it's over after an hour, and I turn to my colleagues, and I'm like, I'm going to go create a course with Tyra Banks. And they're like, okay. I said, I'll see you. I'm going to go talk to her. So I go backstage, and they're like, you're not allowed in here. And I said, oh, no, I'm allowed. I said, I teach here, and I produce The View. And so I just pushed my way back. Now, I don't have any permission to do this, by the way, but I figure, what's to lose, right? And so I go backstage, and I say, hi, Tyra, I'm Allison Kluger. I teach here, and I used to produce The View. I said, would you have any interest in teaching a course here with me, a 2-week compressed course on personal branding? Now, again, I have no permission to do this, okay? But I figured at least I'll ask her. And what do you think Tyra says? This amazing, fierce, beautiful, successful, multimillionaire woman. She says, I don't know if I'm ready. Right? I've thought about teaching, but I thought about it later on in my life. Like the typical answer that all of us, right? I don't think I'm ready. I swear to God. And I said to her, Tyra, I learned more from you in that 1 hour about personal branding than I've learned from anybody. I said, you are definitely ready. I said, I have some definite ideas about how I would do a course. And so her agent was there and gave me her card, and she said, why don't we speak next week? By the time I called her the next week, I had that 6-class course already sculpted out. I decided I was going to stream it live on Facebook. I decided that the final project was going to come live from a television station that I was on the board of directors for. And I had already kind of delineated all the 6 classes and what would make it different. And I said to her, you need to be in every single class. You can't just come for a couple. It has to be you in every class. And she agreed, and we talked about it. And I said, these are the dates that are available for compressed courses. Which ones can you do? And she gave me 2 possible dates. Then I wrote the entire proposal with everything in it, and then I went to the dean of the business school. And I said, I would like to teach a course with Tyra Banks. She is available on this date, and this date. We are going to stream it live on Facebook. We are going to come live from a television station. These are the 6 days. These are the guests we're going to have. This is what we're going to teach, and this is how it's different. And he said yes. Now, I can guarantee you that if I went up to him after she showed up and said, I think I want to teach with Tyra Banks. Can I do that? He would have said no. He would have said, Tyra's not the image of Stanford Business School. No. And I know because I got a lot of pushback from a lot of crusty old professors who were really offended that I brought Tyra Banks to Stanford Business School. I did it the other way. I presented the solution. I presented it fully fleshed out. I took my time and I took my care and I presented it in such a way that he couldn't say no. That is my belief for anybody. You see a void, something that's not being done, you fill that void with your dream. You see a position and you want it, you go figure out how you can get that. You see a job that's not being done and you want to do it, you figure out how you can fill that. If you see something the company that you want to be in doesn't have, figure out, how can I get into that company? What kind of position do they need? How would I do it? You know, sometimes they won't have that position or they don't want it, but just the fact that you presented them with it, and they like your moxie. They like the fact that you thought about it and it differentiates you already. A lot about personal branding and reputation is how you present yourself. Did you present yourself in a confident way? Did you present yourself as an independent thinker? Did you present yourself as someone who is a problem solver instead of an identifier of problems? All of a sudden, there are opportunities for you. And maybe that place won't have a job for you, but they'll say, you know, I really like you. I know someone who needs someone like you. It's kind of how you spin it. So maybe my method won't work in one place. If I had given up after the communications school at Stanford wasn't available to me when the dean was ousted, if I had given up after continuing studies, said, we can only use one of your guests, I would have just not been able to do this, but I didn't give up. I kept trying different routes so I could get my course in. And that led me to teaching more courses. And that led me to the audience of Tyra. And, you know, I'm just going to keep creating new content. And it's not that I'm so great or fabulous, but I keep looking for that opportunity when it meets that preparation. And then my initiative just keeps popping up. Well, I'm going to tell you, first of all, I was a really shy kid. I hid behind my mom's skirt all the time. And I cried. I had a twin brother, and he was the one who always would like pull me out and give me security. But I was a really shy kid. And I'm really sensitive. And, you know, I had to become the leader I wanted to be. My second month at Good Morning America, I think I was 20, I was crying at work. And it was about something personal, I remember. And this producer, Sonia, she was English and scary. She pulled me in her office and she said, Allison, I don't ever want to see you crying at work again. Do you know why? And intuitively I knew why. But I said, uh-huh. And she says, because you're young, you're female, and you're attractive. And no one is going to believe you can do your job. And no one is going to think you're reliable. And no one is going to give you any responsibility. Do you understand? And I'm like, uh-huh. And she said, if you ever need to cry again at work, you come in my office and you close the door. Otherwise, if someone says to you, are you having a good day? You say, I'm having a great day. And I said, okay. And then she said, you can go now. And I literally, what do you think I want to do? I want to go cry. I mean, I was, you know, if there was a stairwell, I would have been all over it. I was mortified. But I'm going to tell you something. That lesson stuck with me more than anything. Because I didn't think it was inappropriate what I was doing, right? I mean, something about it, I guess I didn't think it was wrong to be crying. But after that, I became unflappable. Everyone said, Allison Kluger, she's so balanced. She's so calm. She's so reliable. She's so friendly. She's so perky. I hate that word, but I'm very perky. And the truth is, I was attracted to these jobs that were very in the moment, in the control room, on air, on live TV, and all of a sudden I had to be someone who had to troubleshoot, right? And it became authentic. And a lot of this is the buzzword for all of us, right? Authentic. And people say to me, well, how can you fake it till you make it if you want to be authentic? But what happens if you act like the leader you want to be and you do it on a regular basis, it becomes authentic. Because I had to practice being calm, being in control, being the kind of leader that I wanted to be perceived as, I became that leader. Do I still cry? Absolutely. Obviously, I cried 7 or 8 years later in the stairwell of Open TV. But I was smart enough to know when to do it and when not to, and the kind of feeling I want to give other people about me. God bless you. So what I say to you is, look to the leaders you admire. Think about the leader you want to be, the kind of role that you want to have, and that's a great way to get your personal brand out. To create your reputation, it's never too late. People will respond to you if you're putting out what you want to put out. And it's never too late to start. And if you're saying, I don't really know what it is, then look to a person you admire and say, I want to be like that person. Or talk to a person you're close to and say, what do I put out? What do you think I do well? What do you think I don't do well? What do I not do enough of? And have someone be really candid with you. Sometimes we don't see ourselves as clearly as we need to. In my branding course, I use this book as a textbook called Branding Pays by Karen Kang. She talks about cake being your rational value, which are the functional benefits. So if you were an engineer, you'd be obviously very analytical and linear and probably good with numbers. If you're a lawyer, you're probably also very analytical and good at reading and analyzing. And a doctor, obviously, very, very good at studying and research and good with your hands. So there's certain things that are your functional benefits, and that's your cake, it's your skills. And then you've got your icing. That's your emotional value. That's how people describe you. Are you friendly? Are you calm? Are you disciplined? That's your icing. Together, your cake and icing create a strong brand for who you are. So that's her kind of proposal in her book. But because I'm a very visual person, I wanted to create an activity for my students. And I came up with a visual. And by the way, at the end of this session tonight, Patty and Paul have my sheet for you to take home. So pay attention to this exercise because you can go home and do it yourself. So I put together this sheet, which says cake and icing. But I want to walk you through it really quickly. And there was a reason I went through my history, because I want to show you something that's kind of neat. I put every single job that I went over with you, starting here and kind of going like that. TV producer, host and producer at Q2, then a shopping network, GSN, which was another one, then The View, and then Sage Street, which was my .com, Open TV, Current TV, Stanford lecturer. And I wrote down all the different cake that I had at each one, starting with creating content, being innovative, being a problem solver, coaching talent, being an expert at messaging. And then I went through each one. Now, by the way, you can add things like community activities, if you do theater, if you're an athlete, because all of those have certain cake, certain skills. You can add being a parent also, because that has certain skills. I didn't add any of that because I had a lot of positions I wanted to put, but each job or title you hold in your life holds skills. Why it's important is that you'll see a lot of the same skills pop up over and over again, and then new skills. And why I like this is because it's not like a resume, which is always very hard and a little bit disheartening when you put together. And when you're thinking about pivoting or looking at your personal brand, this sometimes becomes clear, what am I good at? What is my cake? What is my brand? And it also reinforces maybe what resonates with you best. And when you're looking to repackage yourself, it shows you the core skills that you can sell yourself. Just because you were, I was a TV producer and I turned into a lecturer at Stanford. They're not really obvious changes, but somehow it worked. Somehow one created credibility for the other, but it was how I marketed myself to make it work. I used skills from one to make credibility for the other. So you have to kind of think, what skills do I have? And if I'm going to pivot a little bit, how do I push those skills to support the new thing I want to do? Present the solution, right? So what I want you to do when you get this sheet and you do it later at home, put down whatever titles of things you do in your life, hobbies or any positions you've had, and write down your cake. And then circle the things that are all similar. And then you'll come up with your cake. And these are my cake. And the funny thing is, my TV producer and my Stanford lecturer turned out to be the exact same skills, years and years apart. Create content, innovative, problem solver, coach talent, expert at messaging. Who knew? And then I put for my icing, innovative, friendly, calm, take charge, confident, reliable, delivers results, and multifunctional. And some of these I got from my friends who I asked, how would you describe me? So if you have a problem with your icing, it's good to ask people who are close to you, and they can help you with your icing. It's just a little exercise that can help you, and it really makes you feel a little bit more confident and secure about yourself, and to see if you're on the right track. But also, it's a great way to take stock of what you've done in your life so far and see what the commonality is, okay? How do you brand yourself? Right? You're not a pair of eyeglasses, you're not a company like that, like Warby, Parker. How do we brand ourselves? Well, it's easy if you have a certain look, right? But we all kind of have a story. Well, the first thing I say is be aware of the environment you're in the market, in the landscape, and your competitors. A lot of people don't actually like to look at all the research around them. They get nervous, it makes them feel pressured, but it's actually a really good thing to know your area of expertise, because then you can talk about it when you're in social environments, and it makes you feel more of an expert. And you can also kind of get into that influencer mode. But when you feel more fluid in the area that you're in, it gives you more confidence. So it's good to read up in your area. Think critically about what assets you have. Even that cake and icing exercise helps you think about your assets. I also say what differentiates you, and I think that's the next point. But when I say differentiates you, what in your area that you do could be a little bit different than the next person? Do you have a specialty in what you do? Is there something that makes you different, or that brought you to it, or to your history that brought you to this area that you work in? It's good to think of differentiating factors, because there's so many people out there and you want to be recognized for you, uniquely you. Tyra used to say in our class that different is better than perfect. And I truly believe that. None of us are perfect. Different is better than perfect. It's good to be different. It's good to be quirky. Just be you. What is a brand story? Well, a lot of really great brands have a story behind it, and people have a story behind it too, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But a powerful story is kind of an origin story. Every company started from something, a germ of an idea, solving a problem, and if they're smart, they'll make sure that that is very apparent in how they push their brand. Also, are they solving a conflict? A lot of the inventions are because something is driving somebody crazy and they need a better way to do something. And that's why something's been invented. Also, a powerful story is inspiring, it's rich in detail, it's authentic, and again, it's differentiated from another idea that's out there. So I think a strong brand is a story well told, it's got some passion in it, and it's got the history of the founder. Who's heard of Tom's shoes? Great, okay. So this is a shoe company that really stood out from a lot of different shoe companies. I'm going to tell you the origin story. The owner, or the founders, there was a brother and sister, and who's heard of The Amazing Race? Great reality show, right? The Amazing Race is a reality show where you travel all over the world doing different tasks, and then you win. So the founder, he and his sister were on The Amazing Race together, and they didn't win. They came in second or third, but they went through Argentina on one of their stops, and they went to this town and they saw all these kids who didn't have shoes. So when they finished The Amazing Race, they never forgot the town, and they went back on their own, and they decided that they were going to start a shoe company, and they were going to base the shoes on the indigenous shoes, which were like espadrilles. Espadrilles, it's a hard word. And to make it even better, they thought they were going to give it a social consciousness, and they were going to donate a pair of shoes for every shoe that was bought. So they had a personal passion, they were solving a conflict, they were differentiated from all the different shoe companies that were out there. And that's why Tom's was very well known. It wasn't just another shoe company. And it did extremely well. It was also a very good price point. Anybody ever heard of Innocent in England? This is a smoothie company, and it's all about innocent ingredients, like nothing that's preservatives or sugars or anything like that. Two guys who were in England who had regular jobs, and they went to a music festival over the weekend. And they decided for the weekend they were going to make smoothies. And everyone said, these are the best smoothies we've ever had. Is this what you do? And they said, no, we're just doing this for the weekend. And everyone's like, you should quit your jobs and make these smoothies. So they got 2 garbage bins, and they put 1 yes, 1 no, and they put a sign, and they said, if you think we should quit our jobs and do this full time, put your empty container in the yes bin. And by the end of the weekend, the yes bin was completely filled, and there were none in the no bin. And that's how they started their company. Personal passion, a story, and then a differentiated story. Like, it was a totally unique story, and they have a very cute little logo, but they're different from most smoothie companies. And then finally, I don't know a woman over 20 who doesn't know what a Spanx is. I'm probably wearing one right now, but I'm not going to tell you. And okay, I'm wearing one. And those are actually the pair of pants that Sarah Blakely, the CEO, wanted to wear without showing any dimples or lines. And she actually took a pair of control top pantyhose and she cut off the bottoms and just kept the stretchy part. And then she made, with her own budget, like 500 of them and went and sold them. And she just did it all on her own, and she is now like a billionaire. And she was trying to solve a problem. And she's a real hard knock story about this. And I think she's going to be on Shark Tank this week, or she was, right? Yeah, she's going to be speaking at Stanford. I'm so excited to meet her. And she's just a hero of mine. She solved a problem. She did it from a personal passion, a real life story, like a real problem a lot of women had. So my thing to tell you is, when you're introducing yourself to somebody and they ask you who you are, it's important to have your own brand story. Kind of say, like, what brought you here? What's your passion? What was your history? Like, why did you come to the job you're in? Why was it important to you? Do you have a funny story to tell? Why I say it's important is, when someone is recommending you to something or someone is introducing you to something, the more your story is differentiated and unique, the easier it is for someone then to talk about you to someone else. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're not just David from so-and-so. You're David who actually moved here from Ethiopia because you wanted to start a company that solved this problem, and you worked there and then you went here. So if you can figure out how to package your personal story and make it interesting, and have a personal passion, and maybe solve a problem, and talk about your goals, and talk about your passion, but keep it short, all of a sudden you're a 3-dimensional person. And you have a brand, and you have an identity. And it's not that hard. Make your communication strategic, make it count, make it have value. And all of a sudden you'll see that there are more opportunities, because it's not just a happenstance, that it's just a more valuable type of communication. And this brings me to the next point, which is, your brand and your reputation is a reflection of your executive presence and how you present yourself. I always say that your reputation is like an echo. It is like the echo that precedes you in a room. So, have you ever been to a party and someone says, oh, Julian's coming to this party. You're gonna love Julian. He's such a great guy. He's so funny. Or, oh, he's such a whiz. He's such a whiz. He knows how to pick great stocks. Or, it doesn't matter, but the reputation has preceded Julian. And all of a sudden, everyone's eager to meet Julian, right? Poor Julian, he's got to live up to that. But the reputation has preceded him. If you have a great reputation, it's doing the work for you. Then, like an echo, it's the echo that remains after you leave. If you have made a good impression, or if you've taken advantage of this meeting, when you leave, there's chatter after you leave. Oh my God, I really love that woman, Veronica. Wasn't she great? I just love what she said. Did you get her card? I got her card. You can copy it. Right? So you have left an impression. These are ways that you increase your brand recognition, your reputation, and people will be talking about you. It's not that hard. What is left behind for people to remember of you? Have you left with words that people will remember? Did you leave information that was useful? Did you leave a warmth about you. There's a saying by Maya Angelou, which is people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. So it doesn't always have to be words. It can just be your aura. What impression remains long after you have left? Warmth, kindness, intelligence, sarcasm. It could be anything, but it could be strategic on your part. It can be positive, neutral, or negative. It's up to you. It's rarely negative unless you're trying. But neutral's a wasted opportunity, isn't it? Isn't it good to try to leave a positive impression? Look, there are times when I would rather be home watching Game of Thrones. Let's face it. Or I'm having a bad hair night and I don't want to go out. But I look at it, I really do. When I go out, I look at it as an opportunity. Because there are many times I'll meet someone and I'm like, what a nice person. Like, I feel so happy I connected. It's rarely that I go out and I'm unhappy after, because there's an unexpected surprise or an unexpected connection. I know, though, we all sometimes look at these things like, oh, God, I'm so tired, it's raining. I'm sure there's some of you tonight who was like, oh, it's raining, I don't want to go. I kind of thought that, no, I'm kidding, I didn't. But there's some nights, but then you go and you always have a better time. I always look at, though, as opportunity. There's an opportunity to create a connection that can lead to a new friend, a mentor, a possible spouse, an investor, a job, anything. You just don't know. How did you treat people? Did you look at them in the eye? Did you connect to them? Or were you looking over their shoulder to Nicholas, who might be more interesting? Did you talk really fast so they feel really overwhelmed? And they just are saying, thinking, can you please stop talking to me? Can you please stop talking to me? Did you smile? And you try to embrace them with your personality? And were you present? Because believe it or not, being present with someone is the best gift you can give somebody. So many people are thinking ahead to what they want to say while you're talking. But if you just listen and react, it's the best thing you can do. It's being an active listener. What did you say? Did you say something of value? Or did you just kind of gossip or not really talk? Or did you dig a little bit? Or did you say something that would make someone feel good? Like, great job. I heard about that project you worked on. Great job. Did you try to make someone feel better?
I always, whenever I have a client who's got a problem, and I always try to give them a positive outlook on it, on how I can solve what's going on with them.
It doesn't cost anything to make anyone feel better. And you get known for being that person. Whom did you say it to? Are you someone who only looks to talk to the people who are above you, executives or your level? And do you avoid the other people who you rarely talk to? Sometimes you look and you see people who are standing in the corner and who are nervous. I try to go and talk to those people sometimes because they're shy. And I was a very shy person. And then they feel happy, and then you feel happy because you're getting to know somebody new. And I hated being that shy person. How did you say it? Did you say it with sincerity and authenticity when you talked? Or can people tell that you're just kind of talking and not really meaning what you say? And finally, how was it received? Are you emotionally aware of how people are listening to you too? Can you see what impact you make on people? Because that's part of it too. But people say that your presence, your executive presence, is really the key to your career growth. And that actually is more important than your skills, your experience, and your intelligence. It's kind of sad because we all work so hard. But again, those split judgments, they count. Appearance, you should think about strategically what you're wearing. If you're going to a high-stakes event and you want to dress powerfully to give a message, and dress well, that's a great thing. If you're trying to be anti-establishment and get a reaction, that's another thing too. But I coach a lot of people in Silicon Valley, and they're very casual. And I say to them, if you come in and you're not dressed up and you're very casual, people will start ascribing certain qualities to you, like sloppy, lazy, you don't care that much, and that's on you. And if you're a female, and let's say you have a beautiful arm of tattoos, right, and you decide to wear a sleeveless dress, and I'm looking at you, I'm going to start thinking, did that hurt? And what does your mother think? And when you're married, are you going to show that sleeve of tattoos? And it's not that I'm even judging. I'm just distracted. So anything that is distracting from the message is on you. So you have to be strategic how you dress too. It's more about being appropriate for the environment. It's not being judged. In TV, it was the same thing. We had to coach the people on TV. You're going to be on for 3 minutes. Not too much cleavage, no jangly earrings, not too much makeup, no prints that are going to move, because we want your message to be clear. So think about how you present yourself. You wouldn't go to a wedding or you wouldn't go to a big event if you didn't feel your best. So how you look is important. You don't have to be beautiful, but you need to be groomed. You need to, and I've done research, men actually judge women on how groomed they are, not how attractive. But if they look frazzled, tired, sloppy is when men notice. And women notice the same for men. Communication is, again, how do you hold your posture? How is your eye contact? How do you shake hands? How is your voice? Are you clear? Are you enunciating? Are you warm? All of those things. And then finally, gravitas. Let me see what my next slide is. So what do you think of when you see a swan? What's a word that comes to you?
Elegant.
Elegance, the word I was looking for. Someone, I did this lecture a little while ago and someone said, asshole. Swans are horrible. I was like, okay. Someone said monogamous. I was like, okay. Asshole, monogamous, elegant swan. All of those. Someone said pillow. Elegant's what I was looking for. I know, terrible, right? Okay, what I was looking for is elegant, because they glide over the water and they're very elegant and stately, but under the water, their feet are paddling, right? They're paddling furiously, but we don't see it. Gravitas means that you've got it. You've got everything handled, and people know you do. You go into a room and you make people feel comfortable, and you're present for them, and you're aware of their situation, and you acknowledge them, and people are like, this person can take care of it. And that's what gravitas is. There's weight to you, there's a leadership quality to you, and that is definitely part of executive presence. You are not going to opt out, you're going to opt in. If there's an issue, someone is going to come to you and you're going to take care of it. And even if you truly don't think you know what you're doing, you're going to act like you know what you're doing, and you're going to figure it out. So this is my saying, making an impression is not a choice. It is inevitable. You're going to make an impression. Neutral, positive, or negative. So I say be strategic about it. Think about it. Talking about reputation, just a little bit about online reputation, because I know that Paul and Nicholas both mentioned online. These are some questions that I ask my students when we do online reputation. Have you ever posted, we can raise hands, have you ever posted something that you instantly regretted? Show of hands. Was something ever posted about you that was blatantly wrong or compromised your reputation? Have you ever challenged a post and then gotten hammered by other responders? Yeah. Have you ever drunk texted or posted when angry? You don't have to do that, but okay. Only your friends, right? My friend did that. How far is too far to go in online terms of expressing every little feeling? I mean, it's true that some people will say everything. It's a really slippery slope these days. And then you can be perceived online in a few different ways. First impression bias, unfortunately, is if someone is looking you up, right? And they don't know who you are, and you've got so many posts, but they happen to come upon one post of you. Whether you're at a party, like you haven't partied in 6 months, but you were celebrating the end of your project, and someone got you like at Senior Frogs celebrating, and that's what they happen to see. That's their first impression of you. That's going to stick, right? And that's hard to shake. And there could be a negative impression bias where you're a very neutral person, you have a great presence, and then all of a sudden you're really pissed at Trump or somebody, and I didn't say Trump, just anybody. But you say something controversial, and all of a sudden that negative impression is there. Even though you rarely do it, but there's a negative thing you posted, and that's going to stick with them. And negative impression means there could be a bunch of really good things, but you're known, there's one negative thing and it overpowered. I mean, if I say Nixon, what's the first thing that comes out of your mouth? Watergate, right? Watergate. Doesn't matter if he helped with the relations in China. It doesn't matter. Watergate will forever be a negative impression bias with him. And then a fixed impression bias is with whatever information you see online, you come up with your own interpretation. Remember what I said that you ascribe certain qualities to somebody? Well, the problem is once you let something go online, it's out of your control. So you might put something online and someone's going to interpret it in a totally different way. And it's fixed, it's someone else got their own kind of fixed bias about it and you can't change it. So this is what I say, if you're going to put something out there, imagine the worst person seeing it, whether it's your mother, the Pope, or your worst enemy, and assume they're going to see it. Figure out, if you want to post things, have your private area, but it's good to kind of be neutral and professional if other people are going to see it, because people do look up everything. How do you have a good reputation online? I know that's what we all ask. Well, it's good to have a rich history of positive and neutral things. Profiles, articles or blogs if you do it. It's good to have things that people can find that are fairly positive or neutral to show a presence. I know a lot of people, I don't know how it feels, but if there's stuff that links you to your work to kind of give you credibility, I think that's also really good. But the thing is, if you have more neutral and positive, if there's anything negative, it will get pushed down. I know this sounds crazy, but a lot of people say, I don't really want an online presence. I don't believe in it. I'd rather be. Having nothing online says something too. So it's important to have something. When people look for you and they can't find you, they think there's something wrong. I know that doesn't seem fair, but people wonder if you don't have a LinkedIn profile or something. There really should be at least something. When people say, Allison, what's the one thing you should have? I say you should have a LinkedIn profile. That is the modern day resume, and there should be something about you. I don't say you don't have to be on Facebook, you don't have to be on any of these things, Instagram, whatever, but I think a LinkedIn profile is probably the least you should have. It's also a great opportunity for people to find you and give you job opportunities and recommend you. So these are my tips, and they're from Matt Ivester, who was a guest in my class. He wrote LOL OMG. Storage is free, so what it means is that it's much cheaper to keep everything online in perpetuity than to erase it, which is why it still exists. Google yourself. By a show of hands, has anyone ever Googled themselves? Good. Yeah, some people are afraid to. But it's good to Google yourself, see what's out there. Once in a while, go through your old things, your Facebook, your photos, your videos, your blogs, and take things down that you think might not be great for your reputation. Pictures, things that don't represent you anymore. Because sometimes people dig and they find old things that really compromise who you are right now. Reset your privacy settings. Unfriend people that you don't know. Remember those early days when it seemed really awesome to have as many friends as humanly possible and you accepted it? It's actually not great to have friends who you don't know. I have a rule, I have Facebook, it's only people I've actually met, know, and love. And I only went on Facebook because I live in California and my whole family's on the East Coast. It was the only way I could share pictures really with them. But I don't friend anybody who I actually haven't met and loved and known and interacted with. Don't give anyone your password if that's possible. And set up Google alerts in case something pops up with your name. This I'm not great at, but change your password every 6 months. And you can ask one of your friends to pose as your employer and do a search on you and see if they find anything. And finally, some people have the same name as you, so if you want to get your name as your domain name so no one can ever post anything with your name that you wouldn't, could compromise you, that's another tip. So those are just basic tips. My final piece of executive presence in setting yourself for success is resilience. And this is a word that, to me, really defines how to get out of situations that we find ourselves in. I don't think there's ever a time that men and women at some point in their life doesn't have a setback, right? Or disappointed. Doesn't really mean failure, because I don't really believe in failure. I believe that we have hard times. But resilience is something that really defines us. Resilience helps us through setbacks. Setbacks are temporary. And what we can do is realize it's not a conspiracy and that we're going to recover. But also it's an opportunity for us to assess what happened and figure out why did it happen and how can we prevent it from happening again and what can we learn from it. And then my tip is optimism. I really do believe that today can suck and that's okay. But tomorrow, as I said, can be fabulous because we can have a new opportunity. I had this image of myself that I was always going to live in New York City and always wear black. Just to tonight. And when my husband proposed to me, he's from New Jersey, and he said, "Do you promise you'll live in a house one day?" And I was like, I swear to God, my hands were behind my back, crossed. And I said, "Oh yeah, sure." And when he moved me to California, he found the one apartment building. I'm not kidding, because I wouldn't live in a house. And I was kind of this tough talking New Yorker who always worked. I was afraid of having kids. And I forgot one slide, so I'm going to go back. Let me go over my tips first, and then I'll stop it. So these are my best tips. Reputation is like an echo that precedes you into a room and remains behind after you leave. This is an important tip. Make connections before you have to. Be a connector, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when you think of somebody and you think of things, people will recognize you as that connector, and then it will come back to you tenfold. People will think of you for other things. And also I believe that when you make connections for people and then you need somebody, it won't be as awkward when you call them. It's just a wonderful way to be, to anticipate helping other people, and then people will want to help you. The platinum rule, we have all heard of the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. I actually believe in treating people the way they want to be treated, because not everybody wants to be treated like you, right? Let's anticipate how people want to be treated and treat them the way they want to be treated. It's much more attuned to emotional intelligence. I say find a mentor, a coach, or an advocate, especially when you're in times of uncertainty and you want to pivot. Have someone help you. And then when you're able, be that mentor to someone else, because you know what it feels like. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think I've been uncomfortable most of my life. I've just had to get comfortable with it. I've been that round peg in a square hole so many times. I've faked it, and somehow I've come through the other side because I've been comfortable with being uncomfortable. And it's been an interesting journey. I say bring an iPad to job interviews and be visual. We're in a time now where your journey can be reflected in different ways. People respond to visuals, and I think it's a really neat thing when you can show people who you are in a different way than talking. And finally, I say it's never too late to reinvent yourself. And now I'm going to go into my closing, which I started by saying I had this image of myself, afraid of kids, a city person, wearing black. And so my friends used to tease me that I should write this book, which we came up for a title, which is I Kill All My Plants, I've Never Had a Pet, and I Hate Babysitting, Allison's Fear of Motherhood. Because I always joked, like I'm never gonna have kids, I'm a worker, I'm a New Yorker, I'm never gonna live in a house. I do kill all my plants, by the way. And I had roommates in college where 3 of them got me plants one year and 1 got me a Benetton sweater, and who's still my friend? The one who got me the sweater. And, I just had this image of myself that I didn't want to change. And now I live in California, I live in a house, I have 2 kids, I have a vegetable garden and a rose garden, and I just got a dog. Hi, buddy. Anything is possible. Thank you so much.